Hey, what is up everybody? Welcome back to Gambito Gaming. Today we're looking at another video game Iceberg, but today it's going to be a bit more broad. Instead of looking at one specific game, we're going to be looking at a topic that covers a lot of games, and that's anti-piracy screens. The GTA 4 drunken camera. So Rockstar Games really is no stranger to people pirating their games. They actually came up with a pretty creative way to discourage people from pirating Grand Theft Auto 4. In the game, you often get invited or are inviting people to go out on a date or just go hang with the boys at a bar. And after these dates and these hang sessions, could also be dates with the boys, don't judge, they expect Nico to drive them back home. Of course, Nico's fucking plastered, and you know, Nico is always refusing alcohol in missions, but for a guy who doesn't drink, this guy got fucking plastered. So if you do manage to get the other character home without fucking just dying or getting pulled over, because the cops do pull you over for drunk driving in this game, your drunken state will eventually wear off. If you have pirated the game will see that you're missing a key authenticator in the files, and it will just put you on a permanent loop of the drunken state. So Nico is 24/7 permanently fucking wasted. And no, not that wasted, because then he'd just be dead. Which you will probably die a lot because he is wasted. But not that wasted. Not yet, anyway. But yeah, as somebody who's played a lot of Grand Theft Auto 4, and you know, I do my fair share of hang sessions. The 5-minute drive down the road to get the other character back home is damn near impossible. So I don't think there's any way you can actually enjoy playing Grand Theft Auto 4 with this permanent drunken cam on. Earthbound deletes your saves. Nintendo has always been a company that has had a very hard on for copyright law. This is no new thing here. If this wasn't very apparent in their online presence, it's apparent in their old games, especially. Take Earthbound, for example. This game's anti-piracy measures are just fucking ruthless and make pirating the game not even worth it. So that is the point. So they did that. The worst part about it is the game still runs as normal and doesn't let you know that anything's fucked up just until you start running into enemies, in which case you start to realize, man, this game's really difficult, or the developers intentionally put in more enemies in pirated versions of the game. That's right, they did the latter. So yeah, the devs put in way more enemies if it detects you're playing a pirated version. And if that's not enough, there are several checkpoints throughout the game that run anti-piracy checks, and if this check fails, the game just erases your save file that you worked so hard for. You've beaten so many extra enemies to get up to that point. It just erases it and freezes the game, so you don't even get to keep playing from where you are. So you have to start all the way over. And there's several of these checks throughout the game. So Earthbound, just buy the $70 version off of eBay. You're gonna have to meet the guy out in you're gonna that's a local place, I'll have to bleep that out. And you might get shot. But it's worth playing the game over this pirated fucking bullshit. Mario Party DS. This entry was found in the game code for Mario Party on DS, and to be frank, it shows a pretty disturbing screen. It shows all of the characters in the game, all these cute Mario characters locked behind bars, rotting away in prison. This is pretty odd for a kid's game, right? I mean, this one especially is a kid's game, because I feel like the DS had a very heavy kid install base. So yeah, this is pretty disturbing. I don't know why Nintendo did this, but they didn't, because this one's actually our first fake one on the list. There'll be a few on here, but I think they're still worth talking about, because the fake ones usually are the more creepy ones and the more exciting ones. So I will always reveal when it's fake. I think this one in particular teeters on the edge of being something very close to what Nintendo could do and get away with, but they probably wouldn't do. So anybody just passing this along would see this and be like, wow, that's pretty disturbing. I don't know why Nintendo did that. Also, gotta say, everyone in jail looks scared as fuck, but Luigi looks like he's too used to being in there. Super Nintendo black screen of death. The Super Nintendo was no stranger to pirating and having its games just ported onto bootleg carts and sold that way. For a safety measure, Nintendo put in a convoluted system to detect bootleg carts. However, sometimes the system could actually be triggered with a normal SNES cartridge, a legit one. And when this check is failed, or when the system thinks it's failed, it will cut to a black screen and then white text that says it is a serious crime to redistribute video games. These screens would actually differ based on what game you're playing, but they all pretty much said the same thing. During the screen, there's no music, it's just a blank background, usually with a wall of text. And it might as well say, "Hey, are you 5 and don't understand copyright law, you little pussy? You're going to jail because the pin in your Super Mario World cartridge was slightly off when it fell off your dresser last week. Get fucked, loser." Ha! Or at least, I think that's how it reads to a 5-year-old kid, if they ever ran into this. Dial a pirate. Sometimes game companies left the anti-piracy efforts up to specific game developers instead of Nintendo tackling the overall anti-piracy methods for the Super Nintendo. Sometimes they just left it up to the hands of the developers. Take the devs for the game Secret of Monkey Island, for example. In an effort to cut down on piracy, the developers thought it was a good idea to require a real-life object in order to continue on in the game. This object was a little cardboard wheel in which you had to match faces and numbers in order to dial a number within the game. And if you didn't have this real-life peripheral, you couldn't progress in the game. It made it very hard to without another form of a guide. It really is a very simple way to discourage piracy in your game. But at the end of the day, if it fucks somebody over who wants to play these games nowadays, who just doesn't have the peripheral on the original consoles, then they'll just be fucked and have to play on an emulator, even though they own the game, the original console. You just don't have the fucking piece of cardboard that's part of some homeless guy's home now. Spyro the Dragon. It seems as we get further down this list of anti-piracy methods, they're getting a little bit more harsh, and this game is no exception. For the first Spyro the Dragon game, there are several measures put in place to let a player know they're actually playing a pirated copy. For example, the fairies that Spyro runs into will just straight up tell him, "Hey, you're playing a pirated copy, you stupid fuck." Some of the things that can happen in a pirated copy of Spyro the Dragon, the game can soft lock a lot, and the pause functionality can just disappear entirely. So if you got a piss, too bad, shouldn't have fucking did something illegal. The language chosen in the game will just randomly change as you're progressing. So 1 minute the dragon will be speaking Italiano, and then the next it'll be just a Japanese dragon. Good luck. I hope you're multilingual. Some enemies don't drop gems, so if you're going for the completionist route, you're fucked. The game will occasionally return you to the wrong home or stage upon exit of level. This can be just annoying because you gotta walk your ass back to where you were trying to be. And then all of the stages in Midnight Mountain are replaced with the ones from Sunrise Spring. I don't know really what that means. I'm not a huge Spyro head, but I assume that's pretty fucky. They really could have stopped at soft locking the game if they were taking my opinion on it. But they went balls to the fucking wall with Spyro. Listen, man, don't steal from Spyro, okay? Someone stole from him once in '84. They say he still keeps the guy barely alive in his basement. Game Dev Tycoon. No entry really thus far has gotten super creative with their anti-piracy. Well, at least not in like the M. Night kind of way. This next one is like that. The Game Dev Tycoon is a simulator game where you play as a video game startup company. Among many self-aware game developer jokes is an anti-piracy system that was born straight out of necessity. At the peak of the game's popularity, the developer of Game Dev Tycoon stated that over 97% of the player base was playing a pirated copy. So this inspired the developer to make a foolproof system for hacked copies. They decided to play the slow game. Players could load up a game normally and play for a while without anything really out of the ordinary happening. However, as time passes and your game development company starts to become more popular, it will be hit with a huge piracy problem. So big, in fact, that it causes players to lose the game and go bankrupt. The developers made such a unique way of making a typical can't beat the game anti-piracy system. It really feels like this is just designed by Mr. Rogers, and its sole purpose was to make all the pirates online just turn back, look in the mirror, look upon themselves and what they're doing with their lives and their morals. Piracy. It's a crime. Trying to convince somebody who was a victim of a violent act or something that this guy pirated Shrek 2 in 2006, he should be just as guilty. It's not an easy thing to do. They were struggling so much back in the day with piracy that they released this PSA called Piracy. It's a crime. A lot of people remember this commercial for its like edgy editing and weird fonts and shit. The main tagline in the ad is, "You wouldn't steal a blank, then enter something expensive and insane to steal, and boom, you made your point in the late 90s. You wouldn't steal a car. Nah, but I might grab a torrent of that new Kanye because I'm really not confident it's going to be any good, but I'm also holding out hope that it's going to be like original Kanye. But if it's not, and it probably won't be, then at least I wouldn't have spent money on it. So no, I wouldn't steal a car. Kirby's Dream Course. Kirby's Dream Course has a very similar piracy check system to that of Earthbound. In fact, you even get a very similar image that states that piracy is illegal. The main thing that changes in Kirby's Dream Course really makes the game a whole new experience, and not for the better. The game's main system changes some gameplay features to make it harder on the player. Like, if you get a hole-in-one, it'll just half the prizes you get for getting a hole-in-one. Because cheaters don't get a full prize. They still get half, but not the full prize. The big one, though, is when you get a game over in the game, and you go and select game over, your entire game's data will be erased, and the game will freeze. So, go fuck yourself. Well, you say, alright, that's fine and everything. Don't hit game over next time. Just click continue. Yeah, get fucked, idiot. You can't click continue. God damn, you look so dumb. Yeah, you thought you could get one over on Nintendo, but no. Mario Kart Wii. Mario Kart Wii is probably one of the most popular kart racers ever because it was on one of the most sold systems ever, and it definitely sold millions upon millions of copies. So upon those millions of copies, there's got to be a few that are probably secondhand and redistributed. And by this point, the Wii, Nintendo had just beefed up their anti-piracy systems to full throttle. They had this new state-of-the-art technology for detecting fake copies, and they really didn't hold back on it for Mario Kart Wii. To be honest, Mario Kart Wii has one of the most shocking anti-piracy screens we will probably take a look at today. Take a look. This is fucking terrifying. To be honest, I don't know if I'll sleep tonight. That would be one of the most shocking anti-piracy screens, if it was real. Yes, this is another fake one. It's a clever mock-up by a YouTuber named Atlas. You should go check out his video, the original video. I will link it below. This kind of follows suit with the Wario head and Super Mario 64 trend that was going on a little while ago. And it's a very eerie and creepy take on anti-piracy screens. Undertale. Undertale is still new enough that it suffered from the fact that it is a digital product and that pirates can easily copy digital products and redistribute them. However, the developer Toby snuck in a little secret system in the game's files that detected if the copy was a fake or not. A video would play if the game detected that it was a fake, and it shows the flower that is usually introducing the game. It begins to introduce the game normally, except he refers to the game as the full Undertale game, as if he knows it actually isn't. As time passes, he reveals that he understands that you don't value the value of a video game, and that you must not value the value of a life. Makes sense to me. A lot like the original Undertale, this is pretty creepy stuff, and it doesn't feel out of place, but it should because this one is also another fake. But at this point, it's made so believable that people will probably just accept this as a canon for Undertale itself. And it seems like something the developer would do anyway, and they just never thought of it. Mirror's Edge. In a game like Mirror's Edge, the last thing you want to do is get slowed down or stuck. The game kind of works a lot like Sonic, where if it works, it really works and it's fun to play. But if it doesn't work, it really, really doesn't work. Bolting at high speeds and parkouring can be great and all, but it can also be complete dog shit. Anyway, in the original Mirror's Edge game, if the game detects that you're playing on a copy that is illegal, it will cause the gameplay to change drastically. Instead of just doing the typical erasing progress when you hit certain checkpoints, the game will actually alter the gameplay to give the player a sense that the game is still working without it really being able to progress at all. In the game, you make some pretty fucking crazy jumps, like Nathan Drake can't even make some of these. And for these jumps, you need to build up some speed. However, if you're playing on a cracked version of the game, you can gain the speed, but Faith will actually slow down when approaching ledges, making certain jumps near impossible. I don't know if anybody's actually did a run where they were able to get through the cracked version of Mirror's Edge, but if they have, that would be very interesting, and I would love to see that. Is that a new speedrun category for Mirror's Edge? Hey, what is up everybody? I'm going to be running Mirror's Edge Faith Broke Her Ankles category today. BanjoKazooie. BanjoKazooie is already a game that has a lot of crass humor and more adult themes than your average 3D platformer. Therefore, a cheeky anti-piracy screen seems pretty much right up their alley. This is exactly what they did for BanjoKazooie on Nintendo 64, and by they, I mean Rareware. If the system detected a pirated copy of the game, it would continue things as normal, right up until Banjo exits his house and meets up with Bottles. Banjo will ask, "What happened to my sister?" But Bottles quickly changes the subject and calls Banjo and Kazooie pirates. Bottles then refuses to teach Banjo fucking anything and just hides in his hole. Good luck getting that fool out. If you keep pestering him, a text box will pop up where he starts talking about the legality of pirating and then even threatens to call the real police. Unfortunately, this is another fake one because Bottles cannot actually call the real police on you. I could see the devs of Banjo actually doing something like this, but I couldn't see really Nintendo greenlighting it. Take a look at BanjoKazooie, for example. There's some pretty extreme piracy measures here. The game has 2 check systems, and both are just equally as fucking brutal. The first is activated at the start of the game, and if it fails the check, the game will act as if there's no controller plugged in. Good luck, idiot. If you somehow get past that impossible problem, the game performs 268 more checks that, if failed, will instantly freeze your game. It's just not worth it. I'd rather play nuts and bolts while having my nuts bolted down. Donkey Kong Country 2. Alright, so Rare didn't have the nuts, the balls, the cojones to actually pull off the Bottles anti-piracy meme. We all thought they would, but they failed. However, they were actually able to add in a disturbing anti-piracy screen in Donkey Kong Country 2. This game is like my second favorite game ever made, and I really didn't ever know this existed before now. The game will do a few checks here and there, and if the checks fail, the game will fade into a dark image of Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong in gel. What makes this a little more eerie is the fact that the music is still playing, but quieter, and it asks the player to refer to the manual. I can't imagine being 5 years old and accidentally playing on a bootleg cart and seeing this. My homie's up in there locked away for crimes punishable by death. Donkey Kong was never saved due to Diddy Kong pirating that copy of Over the Hedge in 2008. Now Captain K Rule 1 has now become a global power, shutting down all the banana factories across the world. Donkey Kong becomes weaker by the day, and the earth is running low on its banana supply. Please, if anyone is reading this, I'm still locked away awaiting my execution. It's cold. It's dark. Please. Serious Sam 3. Serious Sam is really a no fucks given first-person shooter that is pretty similar to the fast-paced nature of Doom. In the third game's release, the developers put in a pretty hilarious piracy check. If the game detects you're playing a pirated version, it'll send in this big fucker of an enemy, and it's one of the toughest enemies in the game. The enemy actually appears in the main game, but they make it move unnaturally fast, and it's also equipped with machine guns. And if you think you can just outrun this dude, you got another thing coming. You can kill the creature, but it'll just come back again and again, and tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. This is another piracy check that just lets you still play the game technically, but really at what cost? Your sanity and love of scorpions? No thanks, man. Mario 64. Mario 64 has become very popular in the recent few years because it reeks of eeriness, and people have really let their imaginations run wild with the game. If you don't know, Mario 64 is my favorite game ever, and that is in large part due to obvious nostalgia. Anyway, when I see all this creepy shit happening in Mario 64, it reminds me of my own creepy memories with the game. The game will just simply cut to black and show this image of a distressed Mario sitting on the Nintendo 64 logo. He's holding his fucking court summons, dude. Ace Attorney Investigations 2. Ace Attorney falls under the I still need to get around to that series for me personally. I do know that the games are pretty text heavy, and these are harder to get into when all I want to do is shoot things in my video games. Anyway, with such a text heavy game such as Ace Attorney, the gameplay really lies in storytelling and you paying attention to the story. So what happens when you can't read any of the text because it's been translated into the words made of Borginian language, which is a fake language that was introduced in Ace Attorney Ace Apollo. Therefore, even if you're fluent in every spoken tongue in the universe, there is no way to enjoy this experience. And the off chance that somebody just powers through without being able to read any of the story, They can actually be met with choices on the DS screen being X'd out. This is just another great example of taking the juice, the heart of what makes the game good, and leaving a technically playable husk, but one nobody actually wants to play. Animal Crossing Wild World. By the time Wild World released, Nintendo had had enough of people hacking into their small Game Boy cartridges and offloading ROMs onto them, only to resell them later. That's why they took extra care to set up insane checks for their Nintendo DS games. One of these checks was featured in Animal Crossing Wild World. Shigeru Miyamoto himself designed the scan check for Wild World. It's a very complicated system, so complicated I can't digress too much, but it basically checked a single very small file in the ROM, a file nobody would check for due to encryption. Therefore, it didn't matter if you had a ROM that was put into an original cartridge. They sniffed that shit out. With Miyamoto at the helm for blueprinting a leap in anti-piracy technology, nothing could stop him. So the Wild World anti-piracy tech was impressive, but what did it look like? Well, let's take a closer look. That's right, Captain turns on the radio, only to hear a public broadcast that is reporting the crime of game theft, and the culprit is your character. Captain starts to get real uneasy after hearing this news, and he cuts the trip short, dropping the character off in the middle of the rain. The screen fades to black, and an anti-piracy message starts to display. You know what? This is bad and kind of creepy and everything, but at least Captain didn't turn a fella in, really. A day one right there, man. Also, this one's very fake. Miitopia. Remember how I said Miyamoto was on a high that wouldn't end anytime soon? Well, that high got into the 3DS era and Miyamoto was back on his late night blueprinting bullshit. He did it again. For a second time, only years apart, Miyamoto had a breakthrough for anti-piracy tech. This time his test subject was the classic Nintendo hit, Miitopia. Miyamoto knew after the success of Miitomo, there were going to be a port full of pirates just ready to dump Miitopia's metaphorical tea overboard. And I know it wasn't pirates in the real life one. I know. Anyway, just take a look at how disturbing Miyamoto made this anti-piracy detection screen. I feel like this is how Miyamoto would confront actual people who have pirated games in real life. Except the cut to black is Miyamoto plunging a dagger into your neck. You just see blackness after. This one was also fake for the record, and pretty well done. Garrys Mod. The Gmod devs decided to roll out a subtle form of anti-piracy. During a normal update for the game, the developers slid in a check for piracy that would state an error saying unable to shade polygon normals, and players wouldn't be able to play the game. Developers said they were able to catch a few thousand players with this error. However, they said this wasn't a way to punish pirates rather than reward those who had actually spent money on the game. They also explained it isn't about the lost revenue, and even admitted not to being perfect in pirating games at one point. Whether or not you agree with the method used and its reason, you have to admit this is one of the more unique and less harmful anti-piracy methods we've seen. Just Shapes and Beats. I actually remember demoing this game at a gaming convention way back in the day. Yeah, I used to be one of those people. Now I just sit indoors and make videos about frozen water. I remember meeting the developers and they were kind of chill and didn't backseat game a lot. I remember back in the day there was nothing worse than going to a booth and being backseated by the person who made the thing. Anyway, this game needed all the support it could get, so when the time came for the game to come out, the developers had come to a decision on how to handle piracy. In an unusual way, the devs decided to make a video addressing the pirates themselves. They would do this by showing the video over games that weren't launched through Steam itself. In the video, there is angry text and someone screaming at you before the main developer comes on and explains that they aren't actually mad and offers a different way to support the game. By good old-fashioned lip-flapping. He requested the pirates share the video around and create some buzz. Because hey, if they can't cough up the money, surely the pirate's grandma can. This would have been one of the most unique anti-piracy methods, however the screen went unused. This is because all versions of the game required a launch through Steam anyway, and the only way to see this video now is by hacking the game. That'll do it for part 1 of this Iceberg video. I decided to do 2 parts for this because this Iceberg has like 7 or 8 layers, but I combined the last 3, so next video will be the last 3 layers of this Iceberg. If you'd like to see other icebergs I've done on the channel, make sure to check out the playlist and leave a like on this one. and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.